Hi, welcome to a Lynnwood Times interview. I'm sitting here with Congressman Rick Larsen.
Mhm.
Thanks for joining me.
Absolutely.
And I'm senior reporter Keenan Briscoe. We're at the beautiful Red Cup coffee shop cafe in Mukilteo, and Congressman Larsen has his campaign kickoff event tonight. So we're going to talk about your policies and platforms and such. But first, why don't you explain why you're wearing this bright green shirt?
I'm wearing the jersey, the Seattle Sounders kit jersey today, in honor of our great Seattle Sounders team. I was just at their facility and watched them scrimmage the Team Belgium today. But it's World Cup week and World Cup month around the Pacific Northwest.
Of course.
U.S. men's national team plays Australia this Friday in Seattle. I got to go to that game as well. I'm a big soccer fan, big soccer nut. Love the game. And so I thought about changing for this interview, but I thought, I'd rather be seen wearing a soccer kit than a nice shirt. Because honestly, this is a nicer shirt than I was going to wear.
Well spirited. So if you're ready to go, we're going to start off with some legislation questions. Firstly, in the last 2 years, you've co-sponsored several key pieces of legislation, including the $105.5 billion FAA Reauthorization Act of 2024, signed into law in May 2024, and the more recent $580 billion Build America 250 Act, the Bipartisan Surface Transportation Reauthorization Bill you co-sponsored with Chairman Graves, that overwhelmingly passed the House Transportation Committee in May of this year.
Yeah.
What were the most important provisions in those bills for aviation safety, workforce development, and infrastructure in Washington State? And what specific projects or improvements in the second district do you hope to see advance with continued federal infrastructure investment?
Yeah, thanks for the question, because transportation and infrastructure investment is critical in the Northwest for job creation. Infrastructure investment equals jobs. It's a pretty simple formula. So the federal government has some responsibility to support these investments that occur, say, at Payne Field, using some of the FAA federal aviation dollars to not just improve the taxiway system, but improve the runway at Payne Field in the future. Up north, outside of Snohomish County, in Bellingham, the Bellingham Airport, Skagit County Regional Airport, all using these federal dollars to help make improvements to the taxiways and runways. And when you build that infrastructure, it makes it more attractive for folks to invest in businesses here in the Northwest. That's on the aviation side. And on the roads, bridges, highways, transit, rail side, the surface transportation bill, we passed that out of committee. We're working on trying to get it now to the floor, eventually the Senate and then the president. But a lot of this is a continuation of what the Biden administration did to invest in those modes of transportation, especially in roadway safety, where we have 40,000 roadway deaths a year still in this country. And improving roadway safety, in part, is a matter of making those investments to separate cars and trucks from walkers and bikers, to improve intersections, to improve our freeways and our state roads as well. A lot of that money comes through the federal government to our states, and that investment happens locally. Tied to that is the opportunity to tie some of these major funding opportunities to workforce development. So we're building the next generation of workforce: carpenters, laborers, bricklayers, cement masons, building that workforce while we're building the infrastructure. And that's been a key focus of mine as well.
Great. So, as ranking member of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, how has your role shaped the bipartisan infrastructure and aviation package that have moved through Congress recently? Additionally, what compromises were necessary to get things done?
My basic principles on aviation and on road movement, surface transportation movement, have been to get a safer, more reliable, and more accessible and cleaner transportation system built. So on aviation, talking about my priorities, we were able to get into the bill some improvements for accessibility, especially for people who are wheelchair bound. And now I will say this: we're getting pushback from the airlines on this issue, and it's frustrating as heck for me. But just recently met with the Paralyzed Veterans of America group, and they're foursquare behind pushing more accessibility, training of the people at the airport who handle wheelchairs. These are not wheelchairs that you use in hospitals. These are wheelchairs that these people really depend upon to move around. So they could be a $20,000, $30,000 piece of equipment to provide a quality of life to a paralyzed veteran. So accessibility has been key. Safety has been key. So these investments that we're making, not just in better runways, better taxiways, in the technology for surface awareness at the airport, so that people in control towers have a better idea of what's happening out there in the taxiway and on the runways. So we're cutting down the possibility of what they call runway incursion, which is a nice way of talking about airplanes running into each other. That's been a key investment as well. And on roads, bridges, highways, transit, rail, again, accessibility is a key element of that, both accessibility to transit and to rail, so that people who are wheelchair bound can be able to get around by transit or rail, but also improvement to the infrastructure, the actual infrastructure, so our roads are safer for all users.
And then last legislation question before we shift gears. Your Northwest Straits Marine Conservation Initiative Reauthorization Act passed the House on June 3rd with a strong bipartisan vote of 374 to 49. Can you walk us through how this bill came about and how it benefits the second districts?
Yeah. I don't want to get too deep in the history, but I do want to pay respects to former U.S. Representative Jack Metcalf and our current Senator Patty Murray, who passed the first bill in 1998 to authorize the Northwest Straits Commission. The Northwest Straits Commission is designed as a bottom-up approach to marine conservation here in the Puget Sound and in the Salish Sea. Part of that bill created 7 marine resource commissions, one for each of the counties that are represented on the commission, 5 of which are in my district. And what the whole idea is to give local people the opportunity to develop marine conservation projects. So in Snohomish County, we have beach restoration in Howard Park. We got creosote piling removal in the Snohomish River Delta, forage fish aquaculture redevelopment, making sure there's eelgrass. It's a fun way of saying let's grow more eelgrass so little herring can come and the salmon can come catch and eat the herring, so we have more salmon. And then when you take all the counties combined, you have a system of volunteers developing habitat restoration projects that work with each other to make a cleaner Puget Sound. So all of that said, every 5 years we have to get that work reauthorized. Congress needs to put its stamp again and say, yeah, the work's working, they're doing a good job, we want this to continue going. So we had some challenges because some of my Republican colleagues don't have a full appreciation of the Puget Sound and the environment and the great habitat we have around here. And some of them also don't like government interference. But this bill was first created because of the need to not have a top-down federal government approach, but a bottom-up volunteer-driven approach. And that still exists. And so working with my Democratic and Republican colleagues on one of the key committees to make this happen, was finally able to get the floor. The chair of the committee is a guy named Bruce Westerman from Arkansas. He may have visited here once in his life. I have no idea, but we were able to convince him, demonstrate to him that this is necessary, it's helpful to do. And so working with him and his Republican team and working with the Democrat, Jared Huffman from California, able to get that support and on the floor. A lot of this is personal relationships. And that opens the door to making the argument to a colleague. But then you have to make the argument, the policy argument about why this is important for us. It may not be important in Arkansas, but there are things that he wants in Arkansas that he's going around trying to convince people of as well. So he understands why something like this Northwest Straits Commission bill is important to me.
Just a quick follow-up to that. Last I saw you, we were not too far away from here on the Japanese Gulch.
Yeah.
Just down there on the waterfront. And they're of course trying to, restore their salmon culverts. Is this related?
A great question. I don't know if the Japanese Gulch restoration project is directly related to the work of the Marine Resource Commission locally, but it is certainly absolutely related. When you look at what other projects I've worked on and supported, like Meadowdale Park restoration, and the work that was done between the railroad, Burlington Northern Santa Fe, county parks people, local volunteers to open up the creek there at Meadowdale Park. And it is a very similar, Japanese Gulch is a very similar kind of project. And, but I don't know if that project in particular is identified as an MRC project, but there are a lot of projects that aren't MRC projects, so they're are extremely valuable.
Gotcha. Thanks for that. Now, looking ahead, how would you build on your work fighting the fentanyl crisis, expanding access to summer meals or rural healthcare, and protecting marine environment, which we were just discussing now? What unfinished business remains in your opinion?
Well, I am running for re-election because I think I'm best positioned of all of the candidates to continue this work that I have been doing on a variety of issues, including fighting fentanyl and working with local law enforcement and our treatment and recovery providers to fight addictions. And I'll just touch on that. I've got a package of 4 bills to attack fentanyl in our area. One is to support our local drug task forces with dollars, so they have operational dollars to continue to do the literal dirty undercover work. I say gritty undercover work that they're doing to map out the networks that of drug running that take place in our communities, so they can build the cases, make those arrests, shut down those networks. That's important. Working with tribal nations in the area, because our reservations are used as a backdoor for the cartels to bring drugs into our community, but the tribal law enforcement doesn't have all the authorities they need to be a full participant in getting after non-native folks on tribal lands who are doing this work. So we have a bill on that, and then I have a couple bills to help people who are addicted to get back into the workforce as well, and a bill to support our treatment and recovery providers. So it's not just a law enforcement issue, holding accountable the people who are bringing these terrible drugs in our community. It is that, and it's also treatment and recovery and education. And so I'm taking a holistic approach, and I want to continue that work. If fentanyl ever goes away or becomes less of a problem, I assure you there'll be a different drug that takes its place, and so we need to continue this work. You mentioned another issue of rural healthcare. I have a bill working with Representative Dan Newhouse from Central Washington, a Republican. He has a similar situation with a hospital in his district that is largely serving a largely rural and largely tribal population that is in real tough financial straits. And I have several hospitals, but one in particular in my district. It's in a rural area. So we have a bill together to help these hospitals, and there's about 10 or so around the country, to get them what we call critical access hospital designation if they serve a large military or a large tribal population, so that these hospitals aren't in danger of shutting down. And so rural healthcare access is incredibly important to me. That's why I'm supporting also increased funding for our community health center networks. We have them here in Snohomish County, Community Health Center of Snohomish County, it's called. But we also have CMAR, which started off largely serving a Hispanic population. And they're both in urban, suburban, and rural areas in the district. And so supporting continued funding for a community health center network as well, it helps to increase access.
That's great. And CMAR just opened up their crisis care center next to the CRC in Lynnwood.
Oh, they did? Oh, yeah. Great. Oh, super. That's great. I will probably be visiting that sometime soon, as is usually the case. Yeah.
And just real quickly, too, because I remember being there at the Tulalip council when they brought up that issue about the fentanyl being. I like the way that you phrased it, kind of like the backdoor entry.
Yeah.
And it's real. I'm just really happy to hear that there's a bill. That you're moving the ball forward essentially on that.
Yeah. Thanks.
So, if reelected, what are your top 3 priorities for the next 2 years that would most directly improve life in the 2nd District? whether that's infrastructure, jobs, housing costs, public safety, or something else entirely?
Well, first up, the election this fall is largely going to be run on two issues: affordability and accountability. The president promised lower prices and no wars, and we have higher prices and more wars. And the most recently with the conflict in Iran, that has resulted in gas prices increasing by about 55% since the start of the Iran conflict, and those aren't coming down anytime soon. Even if there is a deal that holds to keep the Strait of Hormuz open, gas prices go up fast and they come down slowly. And so people I represent are paying that price. Tariffs are keeping grocery prices stickily high here in the Pacific Northwest. Our proximity to our friends in Canada also means that those Canadians aren't coming into Whatcom and Skagit, Snohomish County as often as they were to spend their money, to spend it at home in Canada, and that's impacting livelihoods in the Pacific Northwest. So prices, attacking prices, and the cost of living challenges that people face can be incredibly important. Accountability is going to be key as well. The president and his cabinet are doing a variety of things. There's recent news today where the ballroom that he wants to build and is building is now estimated to be $600 million. He said it was going to be about $200 million and there'd be no taxpayer money in it. As it turns out, about $300 million of public taxpayer dollars are being used. Either he lied or he wasn't, or he was ignorant. It doesn't matter what. The fact is that public tax dollars are being paid to build something that no one wants but him. And so holding him accountable for things like that is going to be an important part. First and foremost, so will be about affordability. That will be the number one issue. Now, those are big, broad issues. They have impacts locally. Locally, I'm going to continue to work on helping us build a transportation system that's safe, that's accessible, that moves people and goods safely. I'm going to continue to work my work on for veterans, attacking veterans' homelessness, access to health care, ensuring that there is a VA out there that can serve our veterans and serve them well. And I'll continue to support our marine environment and salmon habitat restoration. I think living in the Puget Sound and on the Salish Sea is an incredibly important privilege that we need to always really hold dear and actively continue to support. And then I think as I just finally go back to fentanyl and helping our local law enforcement and treatment recovery providers attack fentanyl in our communities. So there's plenty of work. And then on top of that, if my party gets the majority, I'll be the chair of the Transportation Committee. I like to call it the Public Works Director for Congress. And so I'm going to be extremely busy working with members of Congress all over the country to be sure that it's not just a Pacific Northwest transportation system that works for everybody, but we have a transportation system that works for our economy, keeps us competitive, and helps move people safely around the country.
Speaking of that, what long-term vision do you have for keeping good-paying jobs here while also addressing housing affordability and transportation, such as light rail extensions or port modernizations?
Yeah, I've said in many interviews and other people, transportation means jobs. And in the Pacific Northwest, it really does. So I can look at the work I've done with the Port of Anacortes, just north of here, in helping them get about $10 million to replace what they call their T-dock, but it's going to be redeveloped. And this is the critical dock that they use to support commercial fishing industry and many other industries up there. The Port of Everett just received about $11 million grant that came out of the bipartisan infrastructure law money that I helped support. That's going to help them redevelop their Pier 3 to make that a more efficient pier space to make the Port of Everett more attractive to shipping. There are other examples around the region, but those would be two kind of local examples for port infrastructure. But when you do that, when you invest in transportation, that puts women and men to work locally. Spending money then on them helps them building the next generation infrastructure, helps them stay here, afford a home, afford groceries, while getting money in their pocket, we need to combine that though with fighting housing costs, fighting healthcare costs, fighting higher prices that the people I represent are experiencing.
How do you plan to continue delivering bipartisan results for Northwest Washington for the next 2 years?
I got a lot of work to do on that front because in this committee, I like to tell people that if you want to be on TV in the District of Columbia, there are plenty of committees for that. If you want to be on TV in your district, the Committee on Transportation is a committee for that. And so, with that attitude, it makes it easier to find people who want to work in a bipartisan way because we try to put bills together on that committee that a lot of people can support. And those bills are largely focused on improving the supply chain, investing in our ports, investing in our roads, investing in our transit. And you can get bipartisan support for that. So I say we're kind of spoiled a little bit on the transportation committee in that regard, but it isn't an accident. And you have to try to work in a bipartisan way on purpose. And you could easily not do that on purpose. You could purposefully not be bipartisan. But the only people who will suffer from that are the women and men who are going to work every day to help build the next generation infrastructure. So it is a committee where people do have a better appreciation of bipartisan work. And tell them leave your luggage and garbage outside. You want to go to another committee and yell at people for being a Republican or being a Democrat? There's a committee for that. Go ahead. Don't bring it here. We don't need it.
Yeah, and just to cycle back, it's kind of like what you were saying about working with a colleague from Arkansas. Their issues might not be familiar with what's affecting here in Washington, and we might not know what's affected in Arkansas. But working across the aisles to understand where your needs are.
Yeah, and it's not a matter of people say, well, it's called log rolling, it's the criticism. Well, I pat your back, you pat mine. It's like I don't know anything about Arkansas. I don't know what he needs in Arkansas. My point is he knows what he needs and he knows his experience in Arkansas. He has to pitch as hard to get anyone's help, just like I'm pitching to him as hard as I can, even though he knows nothing about Washington State. He understands it's important to me because he knows what's important to him in his district, and he's doing the same thing, working with other members.
Mm-hmm.
So, most members of Congress, not all of them, most members of Congress are elected to sincerely serve the people in their district, and they want to do that. And so I think that's maybe something that doesn't get communicated. And no one has to believe me when I say it, but I'm telling you it's true.
So, considering what you've already done for the district, you've secured millions in federal funding for local projects through community projects, funding, and grant programs. Can you walk us through some of the most impactful investments you've brought back to the 2nd District in the last couple of years, specifically in Snohomish County?
Yeah. Not too far from here, Edgewater Creek Bridge just opened on Mukilteo Boulevard, and that bridge had a double-digit $1 million cost. We were able to get an earmark of about $850,000, nearly $1 million to help with that bridge, and help with the money that came through the bipartisan infrastructure law, which I voted for, to the state in order to invest in completing that bridge work. So, I have a piece of that as a result. Again, bipartisan infrastructure law has supplied the Port of Everett about an $11 million grant recently to help with redevelopment. Think about in Lynnwood, the Latino Educational Training Institute, LETI, was able to get a $2 million earmark for LETI to help them redevelop their space in Lynnwood. I think they're using it to build out their community kitchen. So that will help them with training and leadership training and support the Latin, the Hispanic community in South Snohomish County and the region. That's something I certainly point to. Been working with the city of Everett in the county on a couple projects that have to do with rail. There's an $18 million grant that was able to help secure for the city of Everett to build a Smith Island access over the rail line. So that industrial land in Smith Island can get redeveloped and then be able to lift traffic over the rail line, so they're not interrupted by the trains going through, and the trains aren't interrupted by trucks going through. And then working with Snohomish County on a project for the rail yard, Snohomish County rail yard that's called the Delta Rail Yard on the east side of the peninsula near the Snohomish River. So all these are really focused on supporting the transportation network and helping to maintain our competitiveness when it comes to transportation. But there are like nonprofit groups like Letty as well that are benefiting from my work to support, in this case, future leaders in Snohomish County.
Great. And Boeing and Boeing and Naval Station Everett are major economic anchors in the district. As you know, what specific steps have you taken the last 2 years to support aerospace jobs, defense infrastructure, and supply chain resilience here?
Well, we're continuing our work to support Naval Station Everett by supporting the home porting of the next generation of frigates. That there was one frigate program that was canceled, but now they're going to do new frigates, and so we want those frigates to be placed at Naval Station Everett, so they're home ported along with the destroyers that are already there, and to support the women and men who are serving on those surface ships in our military. And included in that, I've supported the most recent 3.8% pay increase for our service members as well. And when it comes to Boeing and Boeing jobs, tell people, it's not so much Boeing, but I represent more Boeing employees than anybody in Congress. It's the women and men who work there that live in my district, drive every day into work, get paid, spend that money in Stanwood and in Arlington and Everett and south of here. And so the work that they do is really important because Boeing is. We've always thought Boeing is a local company, but it's a global company. It's serving a global market. It's serving a global marketplace, and the work that these women and men do, people around the world see it and feel it and write it every day. So it is important to support the women and men there. And that's why on the aviation bill, it's so important that there's infrastructure in place to make sure our airports in this country are in great shape. It's important that I support light rail that goes out to and near the Boeing facility. So it can be, so the commute in the future is better for Boeing employees, especially as Boeing has chosen to create a fourth line for the 737 MAX in Everett, which is great economic development for the Pacific Northwest. Ensuring that it's kind of the arcane world of certifying airplanes so they can fly and certifying components of airplanes so they can be put in safely and used safely. But that's what the FAA does, and that work comes through my committee. And we're trying to ensure that the FAA can have more staff to work more aggressively on certifying not just the airplanes, but like the pieces and components that go into the airplanes. I don't know how many. I know there's like 12 miles of wire in every airplane, as a for instance, and that's just the wiring. I don't know how many pieces there are in an airplane, but I can probably find out for you in about 30 minutes. And so, but all those have to be certified to be used in the airplane because you're moving 250 people or 200 people across the country at 35,000 feet. It's a pretty amazing thing that's happening. And I want these flights to be the least exciting thing that happens to people on their travel day. And you can only do that by having an FAA that is well funded, that has people trained to do the certification, so that these airplanes do fly safely.
Great. And of course, it would be remiss of me not to mention FIFA World Cup.
Heard of it, yeah.
Seeing as it's the hot new thing here in Seattle area.
Yeah.
So you've been playing soccer since you were, 8 years old in Arlington, growing up in Arlington?
Yeah.
What is it about the game, whether watching or playing, that keeps you hooked all these years?
Yeah. I started because a lot of my friends were playing, and they had been playing since they were 6. So I was 2 years late, if you will, with my friends group. Really enjoyed it. I played, at the fall season and spring season. What I enjoyed most about it is I was pretty fast. So at that age, when you're fast, you tend to be good as well. So when you're that age as well, you want to do well. And so that's something I can do well in. And then I got older. I got in 8th grade, I got moved to defense, playing center defense in 8th grade, which I was really angry about. And I was asked my coach, he goes, well, I talked to the high school coach and you're going to be playing defense when you're in high school because you're fast and you're tall and you're going to be playing against people who are fast and tall. And we need a fast, tall person. And so my sophomore year, I was starting with a varsity team and played 3 years in varsity as well. And I've got to learn a whole new aspect of the game as well as a result. I really started to learn the game as well, as opposed to just run around the field. I really started to learn the game. And then once you learn the game, it's a much more enjoyable game to watch as well, because you're not always looking. If someone scores an incredible goal, that's incredible. A lot of goals aren't incredible. Some of them are tap ins, and it's like, oh, we scored. That's great.
Yeah.
Some of them are incredible, but also some of the tackling is incredible. Some of the heading, some of the goalkeeping is incredible. Some of the just the way a defense or a midfield plays defense and sets up to play defense is incredible. And having played a while, that's how I watch the game. So I can get as excited as as a game that goes 4-3 because there's a lot of goals, as like a 2-2 game. If you watch the Japanese Netherlands game, was probably the best game so far of the World Cup. But a 0-0 draw can be exciting because there's a lot of excitement. If folks are watching and just can get in the cut, like Cabo Verde playing Spain, a 0-0 tie, and this 40-year-old goalkeeper with six or seven saves. That was one of the most exciting games ever, and it was 0-0 because Cabo Verde has no business drawing with Spain, and yet they did. And so it's about enjoying watching the game, not necessarily the score. Scores are great, especially when the U.S. wins, and only when the U.S. wins. But watching the game I have just a better appreciation for it over time, and so I tonight won't tell people my schedule, except that after I'm done, I'll be watching as much as I can of the 4 games that we played today on replay. Today I haven't been able to watch them, but I just want to watch them just to watch them.
Yeah. Now, you were actively involved in helping secure matches for the 2026 FIFA World Cup here in Seattle. Can you walk us through what the effort looked like behind the scenes and what role you played in that?
Yeah, so in about 2017 or so, the U.S. was putting together the bid with Mexico and Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And so Darren LaHood, who's a Republican colleague of mine from Illinois, and I and several others put together a letter support resolution saying like Congress supports the U.S. doing this. And so we started to push that, like there's the political support to do this in Congress. And for an organization like FIFA, this international organization, that's important for them to hear. So that was great. And then actually the story about how it got in Seattle is interesting because there was effort for the U.S. men's team to play in L.A. and San Francisco. But the manager at the time, a guy named Greg Berhalter, knew Seattle, knew the crazy sports fans we have here, and he pitched Seattle. And I was supportive of that and did some work to let the FIFA people know, and U.S. Soccer know, like, yeah, we should do this. This should happen in Seattle. So again, success has been apparent. So I'm not claiming the 100% credit, but I'm in a position to help where I can. So that happened, which is great news for the Northwest. But the Seattle group too has been really great because we are so soccer crazy here. They've kind of ignored the noise of FIFA that you maybe see in LA and New York, New Jersey, where there's everybody's acting like they're surprised there's a soccer match coming. Or in the Northwest, where there's been challenges with FIFA, we've decided we're going to work through this, and we have. We've been able to get $625 million out of the Congress for security. Think about overtime for all the women and men in the law enforcement who are having to spend extra time working the games and helping make sure that we're safe. People are safe and secure when they're in the games. Money for counter drone training and technology, so that the stadiums themselves are safe as well. For counter against drone intrusion. $100 million for the 11 host cities for transit. We got about $9 million in the Northwest to help transit agencies, extra buses, extra overtime, just to help move people around in the area. Those are some of the key elements of federal funding that have come through to the Pacific Northwest through Congress, and I've been active in that the entire way. And I just, I am, I'm wearing my Sounders kit. Now I'll be my Seattle FIFA scarf on Friday at the U.S. game. Australia, I'm in the tank for U.S. soccer, men and women. And also now, speaking of which, LA Olympics in 28. We're pitching to get the 2031 U.S. Women's National U.S. 2031 getting U.S. To host the Women's World Cup as well. So we're already working on that, thinking ahead. And I think that as of today, as we're recording, just after the first weekend of World Cup, after that first whistle blew to start the kickoff, Mexico and South Africa last Thursday, a lot of the pain, the agony, and the headlines about things that weren't soccer directly related have gone away, and now it's all about the match and about the fans who are enjoying themselves. Who literally are coming from all over the world to the Northwest to enjoy themselves. It's really, it's great.
That's awesome. And now Congress just has to do something about the Seattle Supersonics coming back, right?
If we could, I would. I'm certainly. I was asked the other day at a lunch. I was speaking to a group of folks, and this guy asked me a question. And this is the Spurs were down 3-1 to the Knicks. And
Go Knicks from New York.
So okay. So it was before the next one, and it was a transportation thing, obviously, and a lot of transportation questions. He finally said, "Well, are the Spurs going to come back?" Is what he asked me. And I didn't know. Are there Knicks fans here? Are there Spurs fans here in this room? And it's about 50 people. I didn't want to make anybody angry, but on the other hand, I said, you know what? I hope the Sonics come back. I want the Sonics to come back.
There you go.
The day they announce the Sonics coming back will be a lot of us can pass peacefully at that point.
Just have one last question for you, Rep. Larsen. Thanks again for your time. Mm-hmm. You've been vocal about preparing for the World Cup and welcoming fans from across the world. Yeah. What steps has Congress or your office taken to help communities in Northwest Washington get ready?
Well, we've been here in the Northwest because of my both connections to FIFA people and to the FIFA representatives in the Northwest, as well as the Seattle Organizing Committee, been able to get Bellingham and Everett people who are two fan zones connected to them so that they can better plan how they want to do their fan zone work. So Everett, has a fan zone down at the waterfront. They're doing, they did two events last week. They'll do two this week. Bellingham is sort of a bit more distributed. Decide they're gonna have a lot of restaurants and pubs that are designated as fan zone pubs, and the games will always be on while they're open. So they did it a little bit differently. So I've been just trying to connect and clear the brush a little bit for folks at the local level. And as well, but other towns like my hometown of Arlington, where I was born and raised, they just totally leaned in on a tourism promotion, totally separate from anything, separate from being an official fan zone. So they have a Meet Me in Arlington promotion, and they're just, I don't think they can use the FIFA World Cup trademark. So I think they're just calling it World Championship Soccer or something like that, or to kind of hey, we're 3 miles off the road. If you're driving north to Vancouver, you're driving south, stop in, come see us, enjoy our small town before you head off the game.
Very cool. Well, that's it for our questions. Right. I wish you the best of luck, and thanks again for your time.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
And
thanks.
Go USA, right?
USA,
Friday?
USA.
Australia.